Welcome back to another episode of TheRiverRatslabs. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about when I like to throw the swim bait versus the craw trailer on my swim jigs. Stay tuned. Hopefully you guys learned something. It should be a good one. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I film these in my front yard. It's kind of awkward when people are walking by you and just stare at you when you're talking by yourself. But yeah, a lot of people, especially at night, because a lot of people go on walks around this time of night. But yeah, let's just get into it. Let's talk about the rod and reel setup I like to use. I like to use the Daiwa Tatula Elite 7.3 medium heavy fast multi-purpose rod. I really like this rod because it has a nice tip to it, like a parabolic bend to it, and when the fish bites it, I think that parabolic bend and just the tip on this rod really helps it get into the fish's mouth, but still has a nice backbone to give her the beans. So that's why I like to use this rod when I'm throwing the swim jig. Now let's talk about the line. The line that I like to use is 18-pound FC Sniper Sunline. The reason why I pick 18-pound and not 20-pound or 16-pound is I just think it has a nice even in between. When you go to that thicker diameter line, your bait will try and rise up, and if you go to the thinner diameter line, your bait will try to, dive deep, or it sinks farther down in the water. So I like to have an 18-pound line because I just think it has that good medium range to it where you can throw it shallow and you can throw it deep. Now the reel that I like to use is a Daiwa Tatula SV TW103 7-to-1 gear ratio. The reason why I like the 7-to-1 gear ratio is mainly because I can force myself to speed up or slow down. I don't have to get an 8-to-1 because if I get an 8-to-1, I have to reel really slow if they're biting the bait slower, and vice versa if I get a 6-to-1 or whatever. I really have to crank it if I want to speed up. So I can just force myself a little bit to slow down and speed up. So just basically for versatility is basically why I like that. Now the reason why I like the Tatula SV is because the SV casts super nice, like it casts lighter baits super nice. So when I'm throwing a 1/4 ounce swim jig, I can really whip it around and I don't have to worry about getting not as much casting distance. Let's get into the actual swim jig that I like to use. I like to use the Outcast Tackle Heavy Cover Swim Jig. I like to use 3 main colors for when I go to that, when I'm fishing clear water, and then I like 2 colors when I'm fishing really dirty water. When I'm fishing clear water, I like to either throw the Dirty Money, the Blue Craw, I believe. I'll put it up right here what it's called. And then I like to use the perch. When I like to use the perch is either when they're keying in on perch, or when I just have a little bit of like a tannic water, or just a little bit of a tint in the water. So yeah, and then I like to use the black and blue swim jig, obviously when it's super dirty water. And I like to use the white when it's either super dirty water, or when they are just keying in on shad, like on the Mississippi River, or down south. So let's get into the reason why you guys probably clicked on the video, and that is when I throw either the swim bait or the craw trailer. Now let's get into the swim bait. This swim bait that I like to mainly throw is the X-Zone Swammer. 4-inch is kind of the main size I like to throw for these swim jigs, just because it fits on there perfectly. It's not too small, not too big. It's just a perfect match to start out with, and then from there I will either change it up if, depending on the conditions and that kind of style of stuff. Okay. When I like to throw the swim bait over the craw is basically mostly determined on water depth. There is another determining factor that I will talk about in 1 second, but the water depth is the main factor. The swim bait will go deeper in the water, so when I'm fishing about 3 or more feet, I will pick up the swim bait for like 90% of the time, just because you get that a little bit extra depth out of the bait. Now let's get into when I like to throw the craw. When I like to throw the craw is either in super shallow water, like 3 to inches of water even, or when I see that they're really keying in on crayfish. That's also when I like to pull out the craw trailer. The craw that I like to use is the Adrenaline Craw Junior from X-Zone. The reason why I like this craw is it has a super nice kick. The Adrenaline Craw has a super nice kick to it, a super big kick. It gets great lift in the water, so you can cast this thing in inches of water. You won't have to worry about digging in the mud or the weeds and that kind of crap and getting it all over your bait. And the reason why I like to pick the Junior and not the normal is basically just size. I mean, obviously size, but I just don't have to bite off chunks to get it to fit perfectly. It fits perfectly right out the bag, so that's why I like that. And with my swim jigs, I'm mostly just straight up matching the bait. So if I'm using a white swim jig, I use a white bait. If I use a perch bait, or I'm basically just matching the swim jig to its trailer, or matching the trailer to the swim jig. But for the Adrenaline Craw, the perch color swim jig doesn't have an exact match to the Adrenaline Craw, so I like to use the Bama Bug color. Or I should say, I'm sorry, Bama Craw color. It has that same color as the perch swim jig, so that's why I like to throw that. Basically, a key factor in determining how or if they're eating crayfish is if you feel their teeth. If they're not, or if they're more like worn down, that probably means that they're feeding crayfish and they're digging into the mud. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys learned something, and stay tuned for the next video of TheRiverRatslabs. Peace.